Hey, Captain David Dillman here, live from Eagle Point Fishing Camp, sunny San Leon, Texas, with this week's Galveston Bay Fishing Show. I'm the co-host, and the host is making his way around after eating probably too much Halloween candy. But Eric Valentino.
No candy for me.
No candy. Still on your diet.
Healthy living.
Oh, yeah, right. I don't believe that at all. But anyway, welcome to this week's Galveston Bay Fishing Show. Like I said, I am Captain David Dillman.
I'm Eric Valentino. Welcome to the show, live from Eagle Point, and it's been a great week.
It's been a great week, great weather. Man, you cannot ask for any better weather than what we've had. And we're going to go on and get into it. Of course, last night was Halloween. And I think Eric had a fairly exciting Halloween. Did you? Did you go trick-or-treating?
Well,
you had a lot of tricks.
A trick was played on me. Last night, our house got struck by lightning. It hit the chimney, and it was a loud boom.
Bang?
Loud bang. We had some bricks come down the chimney.
You thought it was Santa?
Thought it was Santa. And we also have, I haven't cleaned up yet, we have bricks that are outside, in the backyard, in our patio area. So I'm going to be meeting with Jason Brinkman from Brinkman Roofing at 5.
Hope you call your insurance company.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was interesting. We have a lot of things that potentially were fried. So I think we're going to be looking, it's going to be new refrigerator time, and maybe some cable, maybe TV. So it wasn't a great night.
Are you barbecuing today? Everything you have in the freezer?
So it is true. I really didn't know we were going to bring this up, but it is true. You do need to be careful when there's lightning in the area. Of course, the typical statement is you don't think it's going to be you. And my wife Rebecca had some voltage run through her right arm. She was on her computer, and we don't know how it didn't fry her MacBook, but in any event, she had voltage run through her arm.
She probably grounded
and body.
She could have grounded that MacBook.
So, yeah, crazy. So we may talk about that again next week, depending on how much the damage was. But yeah, it's no big deal. We're just glad that we didn't lose the house. The house didn't catch on fire.
Yeah, you're lucky.
And I mean, we're blessed. So I ran upstairs, got in the attic, got the flashlights out. I checked everything as fast as possible. And yeah, so that's where we're at.
So anyway, happy Halloween, right? Glad that's over with.
And so David, one of the things that I wanted David to talk about is his experience moving back into his house now that he's got his floors in.
I never moved, but next time if you ever decide to do a whole house at one time that you lived in for 20 years and have floors put in your house, pack all your stuff and go buy another house. It's a lot easier. That's what I would do, because it's just like moving. So I'm still unpacking, and we've gone to Goodwill, Eric, 5 times, which is good. So we are cleaning out stuff that we'll never use or we may think we'll use, but now it's gone to, it's at Goodwill, and hopefully some people will repurpose it. So feel good about it.
And I'm getting the screen set, so if we have any questions through Facebook, we'd be more than happy to cover them. And if you have any questions, just send them in to the Facebook, and we'll talk about it. And I'm actually gonna back up the camera just a little bit, okay?
Maybe you should back your chair up.
Well,
no, you gotta move the camera. We got technical difficulties. It happens even on real TV. So at least we don't have the little vertical in the snow like in the old black and white days.
okay, go for it, David.
It looks good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. So anyway, today, opening of oyster season, which is, it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like the holiday season. So oyster season opened today.
Yeah, one of the things that we wanted to let the viewers and listeners know, with oyster season opening, there were, roughly 50 boats out there working a couple of the reefs. The reefs that are open are reefs that were deemed super healthy, reefs that could be cultivated for oysters, and by cultivating the reef, they believe that the reef wouldn't be damaged. And so as you fish now and moving forward, through the fall, that is something to take into consideration. These oyster boats will be working public reefs, and they also will be working what they call private leased reefs. And the public reefs are typically the reefs that you'll see the most boats at. These are boats that are from, in and around the area, from different bays that may come here. They may oyster and harvest oysters from these reefs for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then move to another bay. But in any event, it started today.
And we could tell.
We saw boats out there, and they can harvest 30 sacks a day, and they can work 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and they cannot work the weekends. So if you're fishing on the weekends, you may not
you'll never see.
You will not see these boats out there.
Right.
So that's food for thought.
There you go.
And then we wanted to transition into what we saw last week, what we talked about, and what happened. And so go for it, David.
Man, so last week we talked about, the weather, and the conditions were right. And it sure did pan out. And like we stated, with the push of water coming out of the Trinity River, which is up this way right here, that would be the Trinity River if Eric, you point to that. And we talked about how we thought that all the fish would start getting pushed a little south and towards the west. And sure enough, this weekend was phenomenal, the weather-wise. And then the fishing really, really, really got good, just like we predicted, all the way from Red Bluff, back down to Seabrook, Kemah, and back down towards Dollar. I mean, you couldn't ask for any better weather, or actually just some really, really good fishing, period, in general. For almost everybody that went out, they all caught a few fish.
Yeah, so the conditions that we saw, we do want to talk about that. So when David and I, we went out with one of our customers, Dan, here at Eagle Point. He's one of our slip customers. And we went out with him on Saturday. And so kind of talk us through what we did on Saturday, Dave, and tell them what we saw.
So Saturday morning, we started off in basically to dead calm conditions. I mean, it seemed like maybe the wind was a little west-northwest. But we left Eagle Point. We just came around the corner here. We fished from Eagle Point to April Fool Point. And we stayed in there for, 2-3 hours probably.
Yeah.
And ended up catching. The bite early wasn't real good. But then all of a sudden, the tide started moving a little bit on the outgoing tide. And we ended up catching a pretty nice box of redfish, trout, and drum. And then from there, we wanted to go and just see what we had to work with, see what the rest of the bay system looked like. And so we ran to Dollar, then we went towards the wells in the middle of the bay, and then we ended up over at Smith Point. And needless to say, the water conditions were marginally fishable, but the water at Smith Point, although it looked good, it was really fresh on top. So we went on a little scouting trip after that and just ran around and looking to see what kind of areas we had. And we based everything on our information that we gathered from here, that definitely the west side of Galveston Bay is probably the place to be right now, or even the northwest corner is all up in here. And it seems like the Trinity River is still running. I mean, still running as it is right now at like 40 cubic feet per second. And they haven't increased it yet, but they have not even depleted it anymore. It's been at 40 cubic feet per second for about a week now. And it seems like, Livingston's still filling up. And so they're probably not going to decrease it. So everything west, we're talking the west side of the Galveston Bay seems to be the place that, you need to be. I did talk to a game warden the other day, and I talked to him about, East Galveston Bay, and he was over there checking some boats, and he did run into a couple people with some pretty nice boxes of trout from East Galveston Bay, which is typical that this will hold, salty water.
Yeah, so one of the things, I talked to one of the guys that I grew up fishing with a lot, and as we're talking about the freshwater coming out more so of the Trinity, and of course we acknowledge that it's slowing down, which is all this is going to clear up eventually. But as this happens, as soon as it starts to clear up, in the early stages when it starts to clear up, my friend, somebody that I fished with a lot, don't forget about right here. So you got, like David's saying, don't forget about East Bay.
Do not forget about East Bay.
But David and I just thought on Saturday. Tell me if I'm misspoken here. When we fished the shoreline, we came over here around Dickinson, Moses Lake. Did you tell him? We also went to Dollar.
Yep.
As we came across and we went over to Smith's Point to check things out. We wanted to check things out so we could tell you, the viewers, what we saw. It got fresh. The water started to get fresh, and there was a lack of bait as we crossed the channel. Did you say that?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, the water was still holding a green color.
Yeah, the water didn't look too bad.
It didn't look bad, but man, when I went over to Smith Point and just tasted it, and it was a lack of bait, a little bit of bait and stuff, but totally fresh on top.
We did not have a salinity meter with us, but on the top I would say
5, 4,
maybe a 7, 8.
I wouldn't even give it that. I don't think.
But that's going to clear up quick, I think. And then don't sleep on Hannah's and over in here. But hopefully we don't get any more rain, and then this will start to clear up quick. But all in here, it was just fantastic.
Fantastic. Why don't you tell them some of the catches that came in?
Yeah, so we had the show last Thursday, and on Friday, Juan Cruz and his wife, they had trout and reds, and that picture's on our Facebook page. You can check that out. Beautiful stringer of trout and reds. Also on that Friday, one of the customers that comes here quite often and fishes for redfish, we've talked about him. He normally fishes the shorelines of East Bay, and he caught reds and flounder. On Saturday, that's when David, myself, and Daniel West, we went out. We had trout, reds, drum, sand trout, and we didn't hang in on the shoreline too long because we didn't want to catch too many small trout. So we could have sat there and caught a bunch of trout, small trout, but that's not something we wanted to do, as we said. So we moved, trying to get onto more keepers, and then eventually we just said, look, let's go look around and let's see what we can report back to y'all. On that Saturday, Juan Cruz, again, he had trout, sand trout, and reds. That picture's on our Facebook page. He had a big mess of fish. Really nice catch. On Sunday, Juan again went out and had limits. I went out with Dan again in his boat, and we caught trout, reds, and we found it a little more difficult on Sunday to get on the keepers. The conditions were still really nice. Water was beautiful, but we didn't hang in there real long.
Right.
I mean, we quickly made some transitional moves, Dave, to look at different reefs and see what was what. And there was bait holding on Todd's Dump. There was a little bit of bait on some reefs around Todd's Dump. We just didn't get the bite at Todd's Dump. But I would predict my prediction is that Todd's Dump will be really hot here over the course of the next couple weeks because there's plenty of bait there.
Right.
But we didn't get the bite.
Gotcha.
And then also on that Sunday, did I say Juan Cruz went out again?
Yeah, he did.
And then David actually went to the jetties with one of our customers. And how was that?
And yeah, I mean, hey, if you want to go catch bull reds, it's on. I can promise you that.
Well, tell us about it.
We ran from here, picked up his wife and kids over at the yacht base, and then took off from the yacht base and went around the end of the south, anchored up, and probably we had our first bite within the first 15 minutes. And people all around us, everybody catching bull reds.
Yeah.
Few gaff top are still in the mix out there, so that's where they went. If you're not catching gaff top in the bay, if you want to go catch some, they're on the jetties.
How would you fish for these bull reds in your opinion? So if somebody wants to go to the jetties or they want to go to the wells. So the wells this time of year between now and I would say through November. Now, we're going to watch the weather. Feel free to ask us what we think. When the weather gets, if for some reason we get hit with just some really hard cold fronts, then it could change things. But don't sleep on the wells in November. These bull reds get out there.
Oh, bull reds and black drum will get on the
So
well.
how do you fish for these bull reds and these big drum if you want to go get them?
So if you're going to fish like the wells in the bay, especially the upper part of the wells, definitely I would.
What do you mean by upper part of the well?
The wells in the middle of the bay, the
Okay.
Exxon A-lease that we know as the A-lease. You can catch them on cut bait, you can catch them on dead shrimp, or you can catch them on live shrimp. And normally if you take live shrimp, you'll always have a chance to, even this time of the year, to catch a few trout out there in the wells and the black drum and the redfish. I would use a little stiffer rods, so, you know, I mean, some people keep the big reds, but if you can, the quicker you can get them in, the least chance you will have that they will die on you, just from the fight out of sheer exhaustion. Now, if you go to the wells, the wells towards, you know, Texas City Dike, definitely you need bigger rod and you need more lead, like a surf type weight.
Why is that?
Because of the current running so hard.
Okay.
The farther south you go, the stronger the current is, and those redfish are on the bottom, so you got to have weight to hold the bait on the bottom. Definitely, and you need bigger rods, some medium heavy type rods that you can handle a 4-ounce surf weight.
Why do you think these bull reds are down on the bottom? And
That's where they feed.
you follow what I'm saying?
Right.
In other words, we talk about as the water cools, the fish tend to rise
but
in the water column. But why bull reds on the bottom?
Bull reds on the bottom because basically they're down there eating crustaceans, crabs, or, you know, and that's really what they're feeding on. I did take some frozen crabs here from Eagle Point when we went to the jetties, and we did catch them. We did catch some fish on crabs along with the dead shad.
Okay.
But I was using, at the jetties, I used, on the channel side, that current was running so hard I had to get out of there.
So on the bottom.
On the bottom, dead weight, you know, a heavy enough weight to hold the bait on the bottom. And basically, out there at the jetties, you don't have to hold the rod. You put the rod in the rod holder, a little light drag, put the clicker on, and they'll take off with it and then set the hook, and the fight's on. I got some video on my Facebook page at Galveston Bay Fishing that you can check it out.
So I have a little story to add with that. So one November, now this is quite a few years back, but I like to sneak out to the wells. So October, November, I will go to the wells and I will fish for trout.
You can catch them.
Now, when you go to the wells looking for trout in October, November, just like we were talking about, don't sleep on Hannah's Reef and Little Hannah's. Don't sleep on these spots. You can go over there October, November, and you can sneak up on these fish. So we're now in November. And we were out at the wells one time in November, and we were fishing for trout. We caught some trout. We were having a good trip. It was really calm. And some guys fishing not too far from us, I would say less than, roughly 50 yards. They were both bowed up, and they were just going crazy. And apparently they were not real organized on the boat. And one guy has one fish on, the other guy gets another fish on, and they end up losing both fish. One of the fish breaks the rod, and then the other fish, the guy was trying to land by himself, and it was in the net, out of the net, in the net, out of the net. But we couldn't clearly see
What they were.
what it was. I just couldn't see it, and I'm like, God, you know, are those reds or what? You know, what is that? And so, you know, in second thought, of course it was reds.
Reds.
But at the time, I was like, my God, what is that? You know, I mean, big fight.
Right.
This is not, we're not talking,
No.
This is not 25, 28-inch redfish.
Right. No, these are.
I was like, they got sharks, they got small jackfish, what do they have? So these guys lost both these fish, one with a broken rod, the other one the guy had in the net, out of the net, and he lost it. And so the water was so clear, you could see down to the bottom, right?
Right.
and I look out over the boat, and I see a pack of bull reds going to the boat, and we're talking like 30 bull reds.
Yeah.
And I said, they're bull reds. So, can you talk a little bit about that? Because at the time I was pretty shocked, even though I knew that happened.
No, they
tell
swim
them about how these bull reds come in.
Oh, they swim in big schools.
Bull reds.
So, I mean, big schools of bull reds. So, like at the jetties, you could just watch, and because once they make a pass by your boat, you could just watch the other boats next to you, and all their rods would go
For real?
off. For real? No, that's what happens. And then all of a sudden, you'll be in a little bit of a lull, and then they come swimming back around and hit your rod again. When they come swimming through, if you got a bait in the water, basically, if you got a line in the water, they'll hit every rod in that boat.
And what I remember, when those bull reds were there and they went under the boat, I go, my God, huge pack of them.
Right.
And these bull reds were huge.
Big ones.
And they were down on the bottom. That's what I wanted you to talk
Yeah,
about.
they're on the bottom. They are down on the bottom eating crustaceans, and that's what their diet is basically crabs.
Now, one other thing to add that David's talking about, these bull reds we're talking about, it's going to be, you can do it with a regular, traditional 12 pound line, 15 pound line, but it's not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy. And then you have a chance, and then the problem is you've got a chance on killing these fish. And these are actually brood stock. I mean, those make babies. So I don't keep them because I don't think they're any good to eat. That's my personal
You only
feeling.
keep one today.
And you can keep one a
two
day.
for the year.
Yeah, you can tag it and you can keep it, which people do, which is fine if that's what they want to do. But myself, we'll get them in. We'll try to take a picture of them really quick, get them back in the water, move them back around to make sure they swim off, and boom, they're gone. If you catch them from, like, we were fishing about 30 feet of water, but if you used a trout rod to try to catch them, by the time you got them up, their air bladder, their swim bladder would blow up, and to try to release that fish, it would float without you being able to pop that swim bladder out of them. They'll basically float off and die. So there's just no reason. We try to get them in as fast as we can with the heavier tackle and release them. But yeah, Jay, you'll appreciate this. So the first one we have on, Jason grabs his net, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy,
that ain't
gonna work. Right, I'll grab them. Don't worry about it. Yeah, but that net's not gonna help you.
That's true.
There. Yeah, that net is not gonna help.
So you're prepared for the bull reds. If you have any questions, certainly let us know, David.
And then the flounder, definitely Hey, when we came out of the yacht basin, I kind of showed them some flounder spots, and I guarantee you, there were boats in them. So those guys and those people that know where those flounder are in the Galveston Channel, they're catching them. They're there and they're catching them. You may not hear a lot about it, but those guys are not sitting in there 2 and 3 a piece in a place that you could only fish really 1 or 2 boats, and there's 3 or 4 boats stacked in there. They're catching them.
We're going to see more flounder caught this weekend.
You will see them this weekend, definitely. This little front will do it. And it seems like, Eric, we were setting up for another repeat of last weekend. Look, last weekend was
what do they
call that? Chamber of Commerce?
Chamber of Commerce weather.
And I don't know how they ever figure that out. Every time I go to a Chamber of Commerce, it's a big, never mind.
Sleep
but
fest.
Anyway, yeah.
But it's not too late. You've got some good weather coming up. This weekend, we believe, is going to be really good. Now, we don't know that it's going to be almost perfect like last weekend.
Right.
But this weekend looks good.
It looks fishable, definitely.
So what we're suggesting now on the show is that you monitor the weather forecast tomorrow. Right now, they're predicting south
For tomorrow.
Around 10 on Saturday.
Which is definitely for our side. We're set up for it. Where the fish were this past weekend, not much is going to change. You have all this on the south wind. If it stays light, you can still fish here. But this is probably
south. The wind's going to be going like this. So all this should be nice.
This is going to be good.
And then you've got all in here.
Yep.
Up all the way basically up to Seabrook.
You can fish all that.
Now, one thing to think about is, do these fish on a south, do they show up over here any?
It would be hard pressed not to go and look at it.
I mean, if it's south at 10, that's extremely fishable too.
Yeah. So you've got areas. I've got a little look. Personally, I don't think that forecast is true. I think what we're going to have on Saturday is a little bit of a northwest, maybe the southwest, but light. And as it goes on, because we have another front coming, they saying Sunday night, Monday, then it will pick up from the south.
Okay.
But I think the forecast is good, especially for Saturday. Sunday's forecast looks a little better. I think they increased the rain chance a little bit, but the wind is like dead.
Yeah, Sunday looks like it potentially on their forecast, it could be, almost flat.
Yeah, almost flat with an increased chances of rain. But I mean, what do you take? You take the 40 or 50% chance of rain in a flat in a calm day,
I would rather,
or do you take 40 and 50% with south at 25? I'll do the 40 and 50.
Yeah, but they're not predicting 25.
Right, but they're not.
Predicting 10. But one of the things that it's a struggle is when it's flat, like it was on Saturday when David and I were fishing, is David and Dan and I, is it's not as easy to pick out the slicks. It's not as easy to pick out where the fish are giving themselves away by overeating on the bait. And so we were looking for slicks.
It was one big slick.
Looking for birds, and the bay was just flat on Saturday.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of wind is actually better.
Can help.
So Sunday, like we're saying, looks like could be a better day as far as it might be flat. But monitor the situation. Of course, you can call us at Eagle Point Fishing Camp, where we're at, 281-339-1131. We'll tell you what the wind conditions are. And then going into this weekend, we have a real nice bait situation. We have shrimp.
Still got croakers.
And we got croakers. And talk a little bit about the bait people are using, Dave, what you're hearing.
Definitely most of the fish that I'm seeing or hearing about caught on live shrimp. Live shrimp underneath the popping cork. Tight onto structure or hard shell. That seems to be the ticket, and that's what those fish are keying on. And when I say structure, old broken down pier piling, shell reefs, and it's been, it's
the shell that you want to fish. So when David and I were out on Saturday, and David was fun fishing with Dan and I, and then also when Dan and I were out, we were on some really solid shell, some real solid reef structure. The fish were on these real hard shell pads.
Right.
And the type of shell you're looking for, in general, there are exceptions to this rule. But if you're in 5, 6 foot or greater, and you have a little bit of wind, and you can just put your power pole down and it will hold the boat, that probably means you're in the wrong spot. Tell the story.
Well, you tell. I wasn't there, but anyway.
So this is actually, I'm saying it jokingly to be funny. I'll try to be funny, but I'm not much of a comedian. But in any event, on Sunday, when we were in Dan's boat, he and I, were talking about we need to be on shell. You want to be on shell. And we were catching fish over some nice shell pads. We're looking at his lower ants, we're trying to identify the shell pads. We moved around, like I told you, try to get some spots, some variations, and see where different fish were. We found fish on all the reefs. Unfortunately, not a lot of keepers. But we went to another spot along the shoreline, and the first time he tries to put his power pole out, and the first time all day, he put his power pole out down when we were down the shoreline in a different spot, and there was no wind at the time. We got in a little bit of wind, and that power pole just was like this. Dave.
Bouncing on that shell. Current got them.
No, when you're on the type of shell you're looking for, it's really hard for a power pole to hold in, this.
Get a little bit of tide.
5-6 foot of water.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting, and Dan and I talked about it. I said, the type of structure we're on, this stuff is like concrete.
Right. So we got, hold on guys, we got a couple questions real quick that we may have missed. So David, the opinion for tomorrow, I think we're going to have a little bit of a north wind in the morning, probably 10 to 15, may have a little west in it. So of course the shoreline, the west side of the bay would be it. I mean, you can fish Seabrook shoreline, you can fish Sylvan Beach shoreline, you can fish Eagle Point to April Fool Point. So the west side of the bay looks good. Joe Holsek.
Hey, Joe.
Flounder reports. What's up, buddy? I think we got like 79 more days. Joe and I are going on vacation with my girlfriend and his wife in 79 days. We're on count now. So, yeah, there's been some flounder caught. There's been flounder caught around here, but there's been a lot of flounder coming out of the Galveston Harbor, Galveston Channel, between Pelican Island Bridge and Seawolf Park.
And we're throwing around a lot of different spots, but we want to give you guys some real options on fishing. What David and I talked about when we discussed doing this show is trying to give customers additional confidence in a multitude of spots. When David and I went out on Saturday, like we said, we went to approximately 8 different spots.
Yeah, put some mileage on the boat.
And so
that's only a boat ride.
What we try to do is we try, to practice what we talk about, and that is look for different areas. We could have very easily on Saturday have pulled in on some other boats that were also catching fish, but we don't really want to do that.
Yeah, we went looking.
So we want to look for spots, look for shell, look for bait, and look for our own fish. And so I'm going to give you a couple other spots to think about, so not to confuse you. But when we get these fronts, don't forget about the Kemah Flats and the Seabrook Flats. You're going to hear us talk a lot about the Kemah and Seabrook Flats.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on the Kemah and Seabrook Flats.
In fact, I went up there Friday, but most of the fish we caught up there Friday were, undersized.
And listen, anglers, women and men, anglers, listen, that we're not talking about, when we say the Kemah Flats, Seabrook Flats, we're not talking about a small little area that's going to have a bunch of boats and it's going to be hard for you to fish. We're talking about a very large area. And so, say for example at Eagle Point, you launch the vessel and you decide, well, you know what, the way the wind is, or maybe even the lack of wind, I'm going to run down here towards the Kemah Flats. This is a very long stretch of shoreline. And then you've got the Seabrook Flats, which is a very long stretch of shoreline. So Sam, Barcelona, our great friend, was telling me, guys, don't forget about the Kemah and Seabrook Flats when you get these cold fronts. After the cold front, the north wind, light north wind, which we talked about a few weeks ago, don't forget about that.
Right.
I got off topic a little bit, but.
And then, let's see, what do we got? Flounder reports and then...
Flounder limit. The new flounder limits.
Abel wants to know about the flounder limit. Yeah, let me go ahead. I do need to touch on that. So November 1st, flounder went down to 2 per person. And then there is, I believe there's no gigging. Yes, there's no gigging 2 starting this month. So does it mean you cannot go use your flounder boat at night and go catch flounder? No. You can still use a flounder boat, but you can't use a gig to catch them. So you could go flounder in a flounder boat and still run the shoreline with them with the lights, rod and reel and a gulp.
Yeah.
And if you see one, just stick it right in front of his face and they'll eat it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can still, but it's only 2. 2 flounder per person. I think until December the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. But I know definitely all the month of November too.
One other thing let's hit on is we've talked about this time of year. There are days where you don't need to worry about getting out early. But David and I do know that if you're fishing on a pier, or if you're in your boat and you have lights that you can use on your boat, that is something that's popular right now.
And
so
yeah, this time of year, those fish will bite.
Yeah. So if you're game and you have a light that you can use on your boat, or you're fishing from a pier that has lights, that is very popular right now. You will see some big time results.
You will.
Now, in the summer, that can be, heavily debated if you're going to see the results you're looking for when the water is at that 80 degree mark. But right now, if you want to go on a pier or you want to go in your boat early along a shoreline and put the lights out, you need to be very careful. But if running at night. But if you do and you want to put those lights out along the shoreline, you will see some catches.
Yep, that's true. You will catch them in Seabrook, shoreline, or shoreline. The west side of the bay is known for that, especially like early morning, even in the dark bite.
Oh yeah,
just in the dark.
The old Eagle Point fishing pier would be packed October, November under the lights.
Yep. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Oh, Eric.
Eric, no, I haven't seen a boat in there, buddy. And I ran up there both days, and I have not seen anybody up there yet.
But we talked about that last week.
But we talked about that last week, about that new reef they built out in front of the old H&P spillway. And it may take a little bit to get going, but heck, I don't know. I haven't fished it, so maybe fish on it now. I know I fished it a couple times this summer. I went up there just to see it and to fish it once they finished it, and it was loaded with gaff tops. So there you go.
That looked like a substantial reef they were putting in.
It is. They did, yeah. And it, but it may take a little bit.
Tell them about what Eric's talking about.
So they built a reef out in front of the old H&P spillway that's been closed down. So the H&P spillway is right there. We've got the old spillway fishing pier and the boat ramp, and it's right out in front of it. And it's pretty substantial. You'll be able to pick it up on your depth finder if you know how to read it. So they got a couple poles marking it out there. So, I mean, it should be pretty good. Hey, Eric, just text me back. Have you caught any fish out there yourself?
Oh, Eric always catches fish.
He catches fish all the time. But anyway, and he had a birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, Eric.
Yeah. So he's a good guy.
Anything else, buddy?
No, I think that's it. I got going tomorrow. Oh, I got boating 110 tomorrow with a customer that called me up. So we're going to start from the very basic, Eric. I'm going to meet her at a boat shed, and we're going to start teaching her how to trailer the boat and them to use the boat. And so it should be an interesting day tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's going to be a process. It's going to be, it's not going to be a one-time deal. It's going to be a whole, probably 10 segments with her to where they can use that boat.
Yeah, one of the things that we're not going to get into now, but we've talked about in the past, we will definitely hit on it later, probably around boat show time, is one of the things hampering boating is people will get a boat. They may spend somewhere between $60,000 to $100,000 or more, but that 60 to 100 mark for a bay boat seems to be that area where people will get the boat, and then it has so much stuff on it now that they don't feel confident in using the boat. And so this happens to be the case with this lady angler that purchased her own 24-footer. And it's something that we in the industry, mainly the boat dealers, need to work on, in my opinion, is when the customer, the angler, purchases the boat, the more expensive the boat gets, really the more time needs to be allocated with the customer, the client, to use the boat. So we spoke to this really nice lady, and she's got a boat that's nice, got some nice equipment on it, but you've got to spend time learning how to use this stuff.
Right.
And if you don't have the dealer support, it makes it tough. And so I know a little bit about the story behind the boat. And in any event, it appears as if they did not go over all the features on the vessel with her. And so here she is trying to learn how to use everything.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun day. Then Saturday I'm fishing, so I mean, it looks like everything should be good. Hopefully we get a good weekend in again like last weekend. And man, this is the time of year, y'all. This is the time of year. You got 60 in the morning, 78, 80 in the afternoon. Bring a jacket, be able to layer up, shed clothes as you go on, because we started with jackets, and by the time First thing Eric goes is, where can I put my jacket, right? Start shedding off those clothes.
Oh, yeah. And Abel asked, can you recommend a boat trailer repair shop or person?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Actually,
That is.
for any of the viewers,
Terry.
if you do know a boat trailer repair shop, if you could reply to Abel, that would be great.
Yeah.
Let's use this, let's use this group to try to help Abel. The boat trailer thing, Abel's tough.
Yeah, I mean, depending upon, Terry does work here in St. Leon.
Terry's Marine on 6th Street.
Yeah. And, man, I knew a couple others, and if I could throw out a name, and I don't even know if they're around anymore, but
Yeah.
that's the only deal. I think the last trailer I had, Terry looked at it. So, and then, depending upon where you are, Abel, I got a guy in Jamaica Beach that works on them. But if you're not anywhere near Jamaica Beach, it's not relevant to you. I mean, it would be, it just wouldn't be worth your while to drive down there, especially like if you're in North Houston.
Matt Holder responded, Steve Grimleon.
Where is it?
Is somebody.
Okay. So there you go. All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, buddy. Ron Middleton, yes. Of course. All you got to do, buddy, call up and reserve it. You're a VIP.
Yeah, Ron, we always have plenty of bait for you.
We'll have plenty for you, Ron. What do you need, a pint? No.
Well, hey, look, we really appreciate the participation.
One more thing, y'all. So let's talk this weekend, since I live in Galveston. And I'm going to not like Galveston this weekend. It is biker rally weekend, y'all, on the island of Galveston. So I'm going to tell you, if you're trailering a boat and you think you're going to trailer on down to Galveston Island and launch it, you may want to rethink where you're launching.
That might be tough.
Because they're expecting this rally this year, they're expecting over 500,000 bikes. So, I mean,
how many?
500,000. So it's going to be, and lucky me gets to drive home in it every evening. So in the morning, I'm not real worried about. They're all passed out drunk by then. But coming home in the evenings, they're just up and rumbling. So be careful on the roads. A lot of bikes going to be on 45, 146. Just watch your surroundings. Don't text and drive. Give these guys some room, and hopefully they'll do the same for us, because I can't say that it's always the driver's fault when it comes to these people riding motorcycles. So just watch out for them. If you're trailering a boat, man, rethink where you're launching. It's pretty easy to get to Eagle Point Fishing Camp, and perfect place to launch.
Excellent.
And you don't have to worry about, the traffic and the bikes that have.
Okay, like we always say, you can check us out on our Galveston Bay Fishing Show Facebook page. We've got the Galveston Bay Fishing Show linked, of course, right here on our Eagle Point Fishing Camp page.
And, of course, our YouTube channel at Galveston Bay Fishing Show. So, how do you say that word? Subscribe to it.
Yeah.
And then, y'all, appreciate it. What about, hang on, a couple more. What was the answer regarding getting the G2? Bob Ware. Bob Ware, no G2, buddy. We're going to be right. Eric's a rice burner, true to heart, right? He's going to run a Yamaha. So I guess I may not see you Saturday, Bob, but I'm pretty sure you'll stop by for some coffee. But if I see you, great. And if I don't, I'll see you on the flip side, buddy.
Tell Bob I'm going to call him.
Bob, Eric's going to call you, whatever. He's laughing. All right, we're good. Next week, y'all, Galveston Bay Fishing Show live at Eagle Point Fishing Camp. Thanks for viewing.